This week brought a whole new scandal for the NFL when former Miami Dolphins coach Brian Flores filed a lawsuit accusing the league of racial discrimination against black coaches. Flores claims that teams are interviewing black coaches with no intention of actually hiring them. He says he had an interview with the Broncos where the executives showed up an hour late and clearly hungover, and he had an interview with the Giants that he knew was bullshit because the team had already decided to hire a different white coach. And the way he found out that they had already hired somebody is pretty wild.
Flores says he found out from Patriots coach Bill Belichick that the Giants had hired a head coach 3 days before he was scheduled to have an interview with the team.
The complaint states on January 24th, Belichick wrote, "Sounds like you have landed. Congrats." Flores responded saying, "Did you hear something I didn't hear?" Belichick texted back, "Giants?" Flores later texts Belichick to ask if he's texting the right coach before Belichick fesses up that he has the wrong man. "Sorry, I expletive this up. I double-checked and I misread the text. I think they're naming Dable. I'm sorry about that. BB."
Ugh. This is so embarrassing. Why do old people sign their texts? Like, do they do that for everything? "I'm so horny right now. Yours truly, Henry. I want you to go to town on my ass. Affectionately, yours, Linda. Squirt emoji, best wishes, Henry." No, but for real though, this was a screw up by Belichick. And he's a coach, so he can't even blame CTE. Because this is how Flores found out that he already lost the job that he was about to interview for, And you may be wondering, why would an NFL team grant an interview to a black coach if they have no intention of hiring them? Well, for a long time, black head coaches in the NFL were just not a thing, right? In fact, between 1926 and 1989, there were 0 black coaches, nada. Yeah, during that 60-year period, it was easier to find a black person in space than coaching in the NFL. And finally, in 2002, Johnny Cochran, yes, the OJ guy, I guess he was really into football, he threatened to sue the league if it didn't get its act together. And so the NFL created something called the Rooney Rule, which said that at any time that there's an opening for a new coach, at least one minority candidate has to be interviewed for the job. Which is cool, but now Brian Flores is saying that these interviews he's getting, they aren't real. These teams are just going through the motions to satisfy the Rooney Rule. Think of it this way. It's almost like when your mom emails you that her friend from church, her son, is moving to your city and she wants you to be friends with him. And then, yeah, you go get a beer with him just to make your mom happy, but you know for a fact you're never gonna hire him as your friend. And honestly, if you're gonna make someone come to a bullshit interview, the least you can do is let them know ahead of time. Let them know this is a bullshit interview, because that way they can have some fun with it. You know, think how dope it would be to get to an interview knowing you're not gonna get the job. Then you can give bullshit interviews. "So what would you say is your biggest weakness?" "I'm deathly afraid of footballs, and I also don't know what a footballs is." Now look, we don't know for certain why Brian Flores didn't get these jobs, but it's clear that the Rooney Rule, despite its good intentions, has done nothing to solve the NFL's black coaching problem.
The facts are clear that black coaches are not awarded the same opportunities as their white counterparts. Black coaches take longer to get hired. They get fired faster.
A study found that coaches of color averaged shorter tenures than white coaches and were less likely to land another head coaching job after being fired.
There was an academic study that came out across 3 decades, over 1,000 coaches, finding that black coaches were 114% less likely to be promoted to coordinator positions.
Despite the success of coaches such as Tomlin and Tony Dungy, who both won Super Bowls. When it comes to head coaches, the league is nearly as white now as it was in 1989.
In 2003, when the Rooney Rule was instituted, there were 3 African-American coaches in the National Football League. We are 19 years removed from the institution and implementation of the Rooney Rule, and there is now 1 head coach.
Yeah, that's right. Out of 32 teams in the NFL, there's still only 1 black head coach, which is fewer than the number of black coaches when the Rooney Rule started. So the Rooney Rule is basically as useless as the 5-second rule. Yeah, bitch, you dropped your food on the floor. If you put it in your mouth, that's just nasty, okay? It's not like bacteria are slow to figure it out. Is that food? Wait, that's food. And it turns out not only are black coaches still not getting enough opportunities, but when they do get the job, they have a much shorter leash than white coaches. Yeah, even if they win, there's still a good chance that they're gonna get fired. Now, Is the NFL doing this on purpose to black coaches? Nobody knows. I mean, maybe. Or maybe it's an unconscious bias. And that's what makes racism so hard to prove these days. Because back in the day, when someone was being racist to you, you knew, right? Because they'd be upfront. They'd just be like, oh, you want the head coaching job? You a one funny Negro. I didn't even know Negroes are smart enough to make jokes. Did you know that, Steve? But that's why proving racism for black people in 2022 can be so frustrating, right? Sometimes it feels like, you're the only person in a horror movie who actually knows what's going on. You gotta believe me, man. There's a serial killer in this camp. Don't be ridiculous. All these sexy teens are probably stabbing themselves to death. Come on. But no matter why it's happening, it's clear that black coaches aren't getting the same opportunities in the NFL as their white counterparts, which is a pretty demoralizing situation for black coaches to be in.
NFL owners have stuck to an old game plan when it comes to hiring head coaches. And that, in turn, has sent morale among black coaches plummeting to a new low. It's now so bad, football agent Brian Levy convened a Zoom meeting for many of the black coaches he represents to talk about the Rooney Rule, part workshop, part therapy session.
You see guys that are not as qualified that jump ahead of you, guys that you have trained and that were under you for years that jump. And now, so what is the criteria? The resume doesn't matter anymore.
He's not getting interviewed because he's the qualified coach. He's getting interviewed because they have to hit that quota. You see the black name, you're like, oh, he's the Rooney. That's why he's interviewed. He's the Rooney.
Man, you see this shit? The situation is so bad for black coaches that they are voluntarily having Zoom meetings. Do you know how truly unfair something has to be for football coaches to talk about their feelings? Think about it. Even when they win the Super Bowl, they'll be up on the podium that night like, you played well today. I'm gonna give the boys 20 minutes off tomorrow, and then it's back to the weight room. This is the most exciting day of my life. Well, for more on this issue, let's go now to our senior tailgating correspondent, Roy Wood Jr. Roy, I believe you're out at Miami Dolphins Stadium right now, and this story is truly a bombshell story.
It is shocking, Trevor. Shocking. I can't believe that racism still exists in the NFL. I mean, they had "End Racism" on their helmets. Are you telling me that didn't do anything?
You know, Roy, I'm as shocked as you are. But let me ask you, what do you think of the Rooney Rule? Because this lawsuit seems to prove that it hasn't worked.
Well, the problem with the Rooney Rule is that it underestimates racial bias. The Rooney Rule says, you don't like black people, well, hang out with one and see what happens. But nothing happened. So now it's even worse, and you're still hiring the white coach and wasting the black man's time.
Right. So then let me ask you.
Not to mention that this rule messes with the black man's self-esteem. He's going on all these interviews and doesn't get the job. He's obviously gonna wonder, well, is it me? You get low self-esteem. That shit starts affecting your whole life. You start having problems with intimacy. Your girl asks, what's wrong? But you're too manly to admit that when you get older, things don't work as good. You know what I'm talking about, Trevor. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You've been through this shit. You start growing apart. She leaves you. Next thing you know, she's dating the white coach because he got a good job. Meanwhile, you at home by yourself watching porn. You're not even jerking off while you're watching the porn. You're just watching it and eating cheese.
I think that went a bit off track, but I get what you're saying, Roy. You think the Rooney Rule should be abolished?
No, I didn't say that. We just got to replace the Rooney Rule with the Roy Wood Jr. Rule.
The Roy Wood Jr. Rule? I'm sorry, what is that?
Oh, dog, it's simple. If a team is going to hire a white guy, but they have to interview a black guy, then they should just have to fly me out.
Yeah, but then doesn't that waste your time?
Nah, man, I ain't got nothing going on except for this stupid-ass job, and I get to have a fun weekend. Get to fly first class, get to chill in a hotel with a minibar, hanging out in fun cities, drunk in New Orleans, back tattoos in Miami. I'm gonna have a good-ass time, dawg.
Well, Roy, I'm looking here, and it says that one of the first available jobs is gonna be in Minnesota. So, you wanna fly there?
You wanna send a black man to Minnesota in February? What part of "End Racism" do you not understand, Trevor? My skin wasn't made for them type of temperatures. Let them white coaches have Minnesota. They can have that.
Okay, I thought you wanted the job. All right, I guess we'll have to figure something else out.